okay, let's make everyone travel and let's not focus on one single disability. Let's mix everyone, the people with various disabilities and non-disabled, to travel together in an inclusive way. It's now more like we develop ecosystems, we do destination audits, help other businesses to become accessible by design, because it has to be mainstream. It's not that, you don't need separate companies for disabled people. Until and unless there is economies of scale, we cannot have quality of customer service, we cannot have affordability, and we cannot live in a world where everyone is included, whatever the disability that might have.
Welcome to Sustainable Futures with Daniela Bas, where innovation meets impact. Join me every first and the third Saturday at 10 a.m. Central European Time for engaging conversations with visionaries reshaping industries like fashion, tech, tourism, sports, and more through social fairness and sustainability. As a global leader and change maker, I share fresh insights and actionable ideas to inspire meaningful change and drive results. Tune in, subscribe, and help shape a brighter, sustainable future. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, in whichever part of the world you are. Neha Arora, the founder of Planet Abled, is my very special guest today. Her work is nothing short of transformative, but before we dive into what she does and the incredible impact she's making, I want to give my audience a glimpse of who Neha is as a person. Hello, Neha.
Hi, Daniela. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Let me start with this, Neha. If you could take a month off and travel anywhere in the world purely for yourself, no work involved, just you, your thoughts and your dreams, where would you go and why? And what draws you to that place?
Okay, so for a month, I'm extremely greedy when it comes to traveling. I want to cover as much as possible. But I would say I would really love to travel across South America, because that part of the world I have never been to. And I would rather say I would extend it to Antarctica a little bit, because you cannot stay a month in Antarctica, but you can definitely hop onto from there for some time and then come back. So that is what I would love to do, because whosoever has went there, I admired their culture and the whole region as a whole, the food and everything, and I would love to spend time there.
All right. Well, that glimpse into your personal side is really so telling, Neha. It reveals the passion behind the innovator that you are. So now let me formally introduce you to our audience. Neha Arora is the founder of Planet Abled, pioneers inclusive travel for persons with disabilities and the elderly. Inspired by her parents' accessibility needs, Neha creates innovative travel solutions integrated in the Sustainable Development Goals and offers destination consulting and builds ecosystems to address barriers like inaccessibility and bias. Neha also shares her vision about accessibility on platforms like TEDx, IATA, GSTC, ITB in Berlin, and she is recognized by Condé Nast Traveler as a visionary leader in making accessible travel worldwide and honored with India's prestigious National Tourism Award. My gosh, what an incredible profile, Neha.
Thank you. As just the journey, I'm just trying my best, I would say.
Well, can you take us then through the story of how Planet Abled has evolved and was created and has evolved over the years? And what has been the key moments to shape its mission and how this journey impacted your own personal growth?
Well, like you mentioned in the introduction, Planet Table started because of my own personal experiences. Both my parents are persons with disabilities. My mother is a wheelchair user, and my father is blind, is also hearing impaired, and has other cognitive disabilities related to age as well. And we never traveled as, like, I never traveled as a child, and
Yeah.
they never went for a holiday until a few years ago. So when I started earning, the first thing I did was to save money and travel, and that's when I think the journey of Planet Able started, where I got into arguments about accessibility at
Hmm.
places, and the turning point was when one argument at a temple turned into a mob fight. And that's when my parents said, "We are not going anywhere. You go wherever you want to go."
Ah.
And that's when I looked for solution, not to find any. And perhaps that's where it all started, the growth story, the research, like, can I really create a solution for this? Can it be into a business and not a charity? And after like 2 or 3 years of groundwork and doing research, I launched Planetable now almost 9 years ago. And even in these 9 years, what started as perhaps a passion project, okay, let's make everyone travel, and let's not focus on one single disability. Let's mix everyone, the people with various disabilities and non-disabled, to travel together in an inclusive way. It's now more like, we developed ecosystems. We do destination audits, help other businesses to become accessible by design, because it has to be mainstream. It's not that, you don't need separate companies for disabled people. Until and unless there is economies of scale, we cannot have quality of customer service, we cannot have affordability, and we cannot live in a world where everyone is included, whatever the disability that might have. So yes, we still do holidays, inclusive group trips, or solo travels, or romantic getaways, or rafting, or skiing, which, I'll be very honest, when I started, I had done nothing of, and people helped us become what we are, because they came and asked, "Hey, I want to do rafting." Imagine a 70-year-old spinal injury person who is in a wheelchair asking you, "I want to do rafting." And I'm like, "I haven't done it myself till now, but let's try. Why not?"
Mhm.
And that "why not" led us to just keep on doing things, whatever people asked. And then people asked, "Hey, help us become accessible." So, okay, why not? And I think, as much as this has led to the evolution of Planet Able, I have grown as a person too, as
Mhm.
an entrepreneur, that it puts so much responsibility, that when I travel the world, I realize that what a privilege it is to be born to parents like that. Had it not been for that, I would not have been able to do what I'm doing today.
So you found their added value to your life, and this is amazing. I love it. And you were talking about solo travels, and that's what I do every year. I pick up a place in the world. Actually, I close my eyes, I open the map of the world, put my finger there, wherever my finger ends. I go. And
Wow.
yeah, it's an amazing experience. I might write a book one day about these crazy troubles.
I look forward to that.
Yes. But one was quite interesting. That wasn't one of the crazy ones. I wanted to visit Hawaii. Since I was living in the States, it was easier to fly there than from Europe. And I actually went to Hawaii a couple of times. I won't take too much time because I want you to talk, not me. But I recall going to a travel agency there, and they were showing a kind of a documentary on a screen of what you could see or else, while in I was in the island of Waikiki, Honolulu. And I said I would like to take a tour with a helicopter. They looked at me because I was kind of shy, not sure whether that was going to be possible. And they looked at me and said, "Sure, which one? At what time? No problems." And it was very easy to get on the helicopter, and I could choose the helicopter I wanted. Then I said I would like to go to a certain place. because there was one of those evenings organized with, Hawaiian music and all the great food. And they said yes, at what time, when, and there were no special buses because all buses there are accessible to people who might have some reduced mobility,
Wow.
physical reduced mobility. So I could choose the bus I wanted, and so on and so forth, until, oh, of course, the boat, a romantic dinner on the boat, etc., etc. No problems. Which boat? And they apologized because they couldn't offer me the possibility to take the submarine. But they said we're working on that to make also that one accessible.
Wow.
That's the world I'm looking for. That was wonderful. And this is exactly what you are doing. So, what scalable practices, in your view, Neha, should businesses adopt to make fairness and accessibility non negotiable in their governance?
I think so like there is a very different definition of what scalability really means. It could be,
Mm,
in terms of business or in terms of social impact. And
both.
I yes, exactly. Whatever rocks your boat. So when we talk to a business, like, okay, you want money as a business case? Here, that is the business case. You want a social impact and a great brand story of impact? Here is the business case. So they have to start from where they are. I think that's where the scalability aspect comes in. The intention to start, like when you went to Hawaii, it was their intention that led to everything, I guess. And because they wanted to, and they apologized when they were not able to cater to the requirements. So that like the accessibility by design into their frameworks, practices, and internal systems is what would lead to scale. Because it's not something, hey, we do it as a side project and we are done with it and our work is done. No, access and inclusion is a journey. Once you get onto it, you are onto it. Just like, there is no phase to improvement in guest customer service or in your best practices. So, for example, in running a hotel, there is no end to improvement in your best practices when it comes to accessibility and inclusion. Once you start it, it has to be mainstreamed into your systems and it has to keep on evolving. I would say it's more like design thinking, because we have so many disabilities and conditions that we like exist, and you cannot prepare for anyone. But if you implement a design thinking model, that okay, you prepare yourself for 10, 20, 30 conditions that might exist in combination, different permutation and combinations, and then you learn from every new case and make it an integrated standard into your frameworks and keep on evolving and improving with time. That is what is a scalable model they should be following and implementing.
Wow. Can you share then maybe a memorable story of how Planet Abled, based also on the things you just shared with us, changed someone's travel experience for good?
Well, okay, so these are like many. I mean, I've been very fortunate that people have literally come and told us, I never thought that I could have such a day in my life ever. Or you gave me the best day of my life, or the best time of my life. Or someone complained also, you made me addicted to travel. Now I
Oh,
cannot
really?
stop traveling. So I think these are the moments that have like literally been the transformational moments. Like, but I don't think I'm doing anything for them, very honestly. I think I'm doing it for myself because it makes me feel happy. That is, I would say, is it's selfish. It's completely selfish. Like, when we do, like, people sometimes say, also say that you are enabling disabled people. I'm like, I would not want to say that I'm enabling everyone. They are enabled. They can do anything they want if you remove the barriers that the world that is not built for them are removed.
You just provide a good service and a good product. to clients.
Absolutely.
I agree with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's this is our job, and creating these experiences, I think, is something. Even though it started personally because I wanted it for myself and my parents, but I think it's just the joy of of creating these experiences. And like, I've had so many properties who I've worked with over the years. They
Hmm.
have like one of the properties, they when we were doing rafting, they made their property accessible for us because in that town there was no accessible property. And later, their owners was in a wheelchair a few years later.
Oh my. So he could benefit of
Yes, and they
everything.
literally came to me and said that we
Hmm.
never knew that we would need it at some point in our lives, what we did.
So
And
we're talking about removing barriers, cultural barriers, architectural barriers, any kind of infrastructure, even digital barriers, whatever. So
yeah,
I'm really curious. If accessibility was a travel trend, how would you convince the skeptics to jump on board?
I would say, like, so when we design for accessibility and inclusion, we not only create a better experience for disabled people, everyone's experience get better.
Hmm.
So if you are implementing accessibility, you are creating a better customer experience for every visitor that is visiting your destination. If you make a ramp, for example, or put a lift, it benefits not only a wheelchair user, it benefits a pregnant woman, parents with kids in strollers, people with heavy luggage, or people who are old. Or if you have an indoor navigation system for blind people in your resort, it benefits everyone, even people who get lost in the big hotels and resort to find where everything is. It's not helping only a blind person to navigate the property by themselves, it's helping anyone else. And we live in a world where, for example, we are more on the texting side than talking on phones. So if you have your room service, a text based room service for deaf people, it is not only making it easier for them to order room service, but anyone, because this is the media of communication that we prefer more now rather than picking up the phone and talking to a human.
And it
So
can
it's
be performed using various foreign languages now that, we can
exactly.
translate one language into another if you travel in a country where you don't know the language.
Absolutely. So it removes one more barrier out of
Hmm.
it. So you see, and many, if you look at many of the inventions around us, like the keyboard in our laptop, Alexa, or the automated doors or electric toothbrush, they were all inventions for disabled people. And now
Well,
they're so
indeed.
mainstreamed.
Yeah, well, persons with disabilities have inspired many things from the typewriter created
Yeah,
for those who are visually impaired many years ago, and then from
absolutely.
a few keyboard, it became something like the mobile
Yeah.
phone we're using and
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. So let us now flip the narrative. What can the private sector learn from travelers with permanent or temporary reduced mobility about strategy and about innovation? We just mentioned the typewriter that became nowadays a keyboard that is indispensable for whatever tech tool we're using.
Yeah. So I think what they can learn is the devising indigenous solutions whenever there is a problem. Like what I earlier talked about, design thinking. Design thinking, the disabled people are the best at design thinking because once they face a challenge, they create an indigenous solutions by themselves to make things easier for them. And that is the biggest learning people can like these businesses can have from disabled people. Design thinking, that how they can integrate it into their frameworks and practices. And of course the empathy, and not treating anyone as lesser than anyone if they have a disability, is another important aspect that they can learn, a lesson in compassion and empathy, that people are just people. Some happen to have visible or invisible disabilities.
So the gain would be to benefit of the experience of a person with a disability from the
Yes.
private sector viewpoint, and
Yes.
also the problem solving abilities that can create
Absolutely.
innovative solutions and ideas, right?
Absolutely. And of
Okay.
course, like, in the sense, what an important aspect that they can learn from them is that they are also like, I see it more in the global south about disabled people, that who pays for them, the attitude usually the businesses have, who pays
Mm-hmm.
for these travelers. So I think there is more education, that, like, they act as role models, that people with disability can have their own livelihoods and have their own careers and have the money to spend their own money, and can make independent decision making. This education, the more we have disabled people just by existing, I would say, they people can learn from them, that they're just like any other one people. Like, when I was in school and my classmates parents got to know about my parents, they were like, who pays your school fees? I'm like, hello. I mean, for me this was a weird question, because for me that was the normal. For me it was nothing different, right? And I'm like, and then they came at our home to see how this family functions, that two people, like in India, where I grew up, women still didn't work at that point in time when my mother worked.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when two disabled people and a woman like my mom worked, they were like very astonished. So, and sometimes they would say, wow, inspiring. I would not call it inspiring. I would, don't take it as an inspiration, but take it as a lesson, that it's an, if the world is equitable, everyone can live their own lives in an equitable and more dignified way. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for underlying the cultural dimension that needs to be improved. So, to overcome stereotypes and prejudices, you just spoke about those two things, and indeed also the differences between north and south, south and south, at a global level, and yet if we work together to um, overcome misconceptions all over the world,
Yeah.
the life of whoever has a reduced mobility of some sort, and all those who have not a reduced mobility but want to do things together, such as traveling, are going to be much, much more simple. So, listen, if you had to write a fairy tale starting with once upon a time, what was the turning point in your life that made you realize the urgent need for inclusive tourism? You already mentioned it, but if you want to maybe add some details.
Yeah, I think the turning point was exactly the mob fight. And it was also a turning point for me personally. Not just that there is inclusive tourism that has to exist, and perhaps I am the right person to do that, because it's very rare that you have a person who is exposed to two different or three different disabilities all their lives
Mhm.
and has seen it function together. And to be honest, I literally tried searching for it, that can I find someone else who has had an upbringing like me, and I haven't found yet, to be honest. I mean, I am neurodivergent. Like, this was later, like just a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
But then now my mind cannot think in a one dimension aspect when it comes to the accessibility. If someone asked accessible For whom is the question? Because I think about mobility, I think about neurodivergence, I think about cognitive, I think about hearing impairment, I think about visual impairment, and I think, of course, I've trained myself to think about other disabilities because over the years at Planet Table, we have catered to everyone
Yeah,
and
the
the various
invisible ones.
combinations.
The
Exactly.
invisible ones often are neglected, and there are so
Absolutely.
many.
Yeah. So that fight that happened where the priest made religion as the basis of providing accessibility that they
Mm.
cannot provide. And, you know, that's when I questioned religion as a whole as well. I am now on, I was a very religious person at that time, and now I'm the other extreme of totally atheist person because it made me question every belief around religion that I had. I mean, it was the starting point, it grew over the years,
Mhm.
but it also made me, evolved me as a person that it's on you if you have to make a change. You cannot go to a place of worship and ask someone in heaven to make it happen for you. You take things in your hands and you make it happen to whatever extent you can. I'm not against people who have beliefs. It's just that for me the driving force changed. Instead of relying on an external force for strength, that I kind of moved back inward to gather the strength that what I need to make this happen, and I'll do whatever it takes to make it happen, kind of a thing. And in my lifetime, I would say I want to mainstream accessibility and inclusion in tourism industry. And if I can do that, on my deathbed, I can say, yeah, it was a life well lived.
So you are for action. And sometimes, if people believe in the Almighty, they can find there the energy then to take action. But action is.
Yes. I mean,
Uh,
it's like faith. It can come from anywhere. I'm not against people who have that. For me, it's just changed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, listen, what is the biggest misconception about accessibility in tourism today? We spoke about the past and your evolution, but
Yeah.
today, and how is Planet Able dismantling it? I mean, any good practices you want to share with us, for instance, in India?
Sure. So I think the biggest misconception that I see in the tourism industry is what accessibility is. So for
Mhm.
most people, it is wheelchair accessibility, and that's where the thought process of most businesses are ending. Of course, US is ahead. I would say I've traveled the world, I've seen the difference, but they still have a lot of scope for improvement. And of course, Europe has a lot of scope for improvement. Everywhere there is always, because it's evolving, everyone can always become better. But the biggest misconception I see is that wheelchair accessibility is what accessibility is. And it's about the built environment aspect of it again. But accessibility exists in forms of built environment, digital, human, information, and communication. So you cannot, especially hospitality and tourism, which is so much experiential, dependent on people that you meet, the cultures that you experience. It is human dependent. You
Mhm.
cannot have, we can have all the AI models in the world, but the tourism experience would always be an human experience as a whole. So we cannot ignore the human accessibility aspect of it, that you can have a building completely accessible for most of the disabilities in built environment, but if the staff does not treat you in a dignified way and is not empathetic to your, sensitive to your needs, that is in vain.
Mhm.
That is not inclusion. So we have to build accessibility and inclusion, keeping all of these like pillars in mind, that they have to function together in an integrated manner. We cannot choose one over the other in a one dimensional way. Okay, let's focus on one disability first, then we go on to the next, then we go on to the next. But what about when people have two different disabilities in one person? I mean, In hospitality, there is such a great awareness now around LGBTQ travel.
Hmm.
It's a great opportunity that the industry has realized, and they are actively working towards it. But do you know the intersectionality between disability and LGBTQ is 30%? So if you are not accessible for disabled people, you are leaving out 30% of that market also. So we really cannot put people into buckets of, oh, these are women, these are indigenous people, these are black people, these are LGBTQ people, and these are disabled people. And then again, then they are wheelchair users, they are blind people. If you have to build a strategy around making the industry inclusive, you have to have an inclusive design approach where no one feels excluded and everyone feels seen, welcomed, and yeah, that's what travel is.
A holistic approach has to be inclusive, and only in this way it can also be sustainable, right?
Absolutely. Totally.
So now let's dream a teeny bit here. And we fly in time and we go to the year 2071, where you are going to be only 20 years old. So, in what kind of world would you want to live? And how would inclusion and accessibility define that future in your view? Imagine.
Well, in 2071, I would live in a world where we will not be talking about accessibility and inclusion because it's already there as a mainstream thing. It is it's nothing to be talked about actually, where every human diverse form is included, their needs are included in a dignified manner, and they live an equitable life in their own ways. That is what 2071 would be for me.
I
And I
love
might
it.
have a disability or not a disability, I don't know, but I would not feel excluded. That would be my 2071.
Ah, what a nice feeling. Neha, we are almost at the end of our conversation today. So, if you could leave our audience with one powerful message about the sustainable future of inclusion, not just in tourism, but in how we live and connect as a society, what would it be?
That we all have to work together to build a world where, so every one of us will be impacted by disability at some point in our lives. Let's start with that. And we do really do not have choice. It could be an accident, it could be a medical condition, a newborn, or
Natural
age.
disaster, wars,
Yeah,
many
absolute
things.
wars, natural disasters, yes, we will be impacted by it. And so the question we all should be asking ourselves is whether you want to wait for that day when you are impacted by it and then try to create a solution that makes you or your loved ones feel included,
Mhm.
or you want to build that inclusive world today so that when disability comes knocking, you are ready for it or your loved ones are ready for it. So that
And
is a sustainable future that we all should be trying to build, that when it comes, we are ready. We all are ready.
that kind of disability will not really impact so much your life nor your sense of self-esteem and wellness and
Yeah.
well-being, because the
Abs-
solutions and services and products are already there, like
Absolutely.
going to buy a pair of glasses for those who can afford that. Not in all parts of the world this is still available
Yeah.
as in the Western world or other parts of the world, but that's exactly what you are aiming at. And I thank you so much for this interview, Neha, and I hope to have you
Thank
on board
you.
another time to share more about possible travels in India that I have visited only once and actually didn't visit India because it's huge. I just went to Delhi, New Delhi, and surroundings, and I was fascinated by what I saw. Oh, and I love certain kinds of food you can't imagine, but that's another story. So
Well, you have to come back again.
I
And
will.
also, if you have to travel to other parts of the world, we have a Vienna office as well. So we can make you
Oh,
travel
yes, true.
everywhere.
India and Austria. Oh, by the way, if someone wants to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Oh, well, you can either just Google Planet Abled, PLANET or go to our website, planetabLed.com, or on any of the social media channels that you want to find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and TripAdvisor. If you want to read the reviews, just hit Planet Abled and you'll find us.
All right, so let's travel together with Neha. Thank you so much, Bella. Ciao.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao. As I wrap up this episode, my heartfelt gratitude to today's guest and to all of you. Join me for the next episode as we delve deeper with special guests, uncovering thought-provoking insights and actionable steps, paving the way for a brighter, inclusive, sustainable tomorrow. Thanks also to Damian Morton, music, and Maria Cortez Galliano, social media. Don't miss out next episode on shaping the future we aspire to. Ciao, ciao!